is this person? Some of you might know if you've done the lesson that was a documentary last lesson. Some of you might not know, but have a guess if you can tell me who this person is and how they link to our topic of crime. So it's Stephen Lawrence. In the title of today's lesson, what was the Stephen Lawrence case? And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this case in detail, look at how it led to the police being found to be guilty of institutional racism and what institutional racism is, and then we're going to have a think about how that impacts ethnicity, crime, and so on. So you're going to watch this video, this YouTube video here. For some of you it will be a recap if you watched the documentary last lesson. For some it will be new information. I'd like you to click on there and watch it, and then I would like you to answer the 4 questions there. Who was Stephen Lawrence? What happened to him? How was it dealt with? And what does that tell us about society? Really important question 4. Spend a good few minutes on question 4 thinking about what this tells us about society. A little bit of information then for you. So the police are expected to be fair and just, but there's been a lot of criticism of the police about being racist in recent years. A little bit of information, a fact file then about Stephen Lawrence. So Stephen Lawrence was 19, he was an A-level student, and he died on the 22nd of April 1993. He was murdered waiting for a bus with a friend by a group of young men who stabbed him. His friend was questioned. The police failed to bring the killers to justice. They'd made assumptions about Stephen and his friend as they were black. So some of those assumptions were that Stephen and his friend were up to no good. They were criminal. He was sort of almost accused of perhaps being a burglar. And they were accused of being part of a gang, that it was more violence, gang-on-gang violence, as opposed to just a straight-out murder of an innocent man. So despite witnesses to the event, 2 of the killers were only convicted in 2012. So nearly 20 years after this murder, and that was following a tireless campaign led by Doreen Lawrence, Stephen's mother. So it took nearly 20 years for these guys to be convicted. So this is a timeline of the Stephen Lawrence case here. This is also in the Google Classroom for you. And what I want you to do is put these events in order. So read the timeline and then put the events into order. You can either number them if you're going to do it as a Google Doc activity, or you can write them out again into the order that you want them, or you can cut them out and paste them into your book. But what you need to do is ensure you've got a timeline of the Stephen Lawrence murder. And then what I want you to do is think about, what does this case tell us about ethnicity and crime in the UK? And we would like a good paragraph on this. What does it tell us about ethnicity and crime? What is going on at this point in the UK in our criminal justice system? Finally, we need to consider what the turning point in the Stephen Lawrence case was, and that is the Macpherson report, a very important and famous report into policing and the criminal justice system. So the government investigated the case from 1997, 4 years after the event, and they found that the police were accused of institutional racism. So in other words, the police force in general was racist in its actions and its policies. It's not about any one particular police officer, it is about the group as a whole. So, for example, what they did was they assumed that Stephen Lawrence and his friend were gang members. And they did that based on negative stereotyping. We talked before about stereotyping and this idea of considering that black people, black children, or teenagers anyway, are considered to be gang members, are considered to be criminal, all based on criminal stereotyping. And then therefore they are treated in a way as if they are not innocent murder victims, but instead are actually gang members and were causing trouble that particular night, and obviously in further cases ongoing. So this led to more investigations into hospitals and schools to see if their policies were racist, and rules could also be deemed racist. So schools have to be careful. For example, one of the things that's talked about in schools is exclusion policies and exclusion statistics. Are we excluding more black people as a proportion of the whole student body than there are black people in the whole student body? If we are, why is that happening? For example, most recently there's been quite a situation mentioned in social media and so on over the policies over haircuts, for example, in some uniform policies that might say hair has to be a particular way, particular style, which actually is discriminatory against, in particular, Afro-Caribbean hairstyles and so on and so forth. So it's really important that schools, hospitals, the police and any government body really, or any group or organisation looks really carefully at whether they are acting in any way racist. So add institutional racism to your glossaries, and that ends today's session. Thank you.